It cost me an arm and a leg to import this Samsung OLED TV all the way from the States to the UK where I'm based. Let's just hope it hasn't been broken in transit. So, this is the moment of truth. Did the TV survive the journey? Fingers crossed. OLED secured by Knox. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Fabulous.
Hello. Discover great new possibilities.
Yes, and I shall.
2 simple options. How would you like to get started? Choose one. To use the accessibility function, simply press and hold the volume button.
Using a colorimetry research CR100 meter profile to a CR250 RH spectroradiometer, I measured the peak brightness on my Samsung S95B QD-OLED retail unit to be 1050 nits on a 10% window in filmmaker mode and 220 nits full fill. When displaying a 1% window, the peak brightness could quickly ramp up to 1600 nits, but after a few seconds, it would drop back down to a baseline of 1000 nits. In fact, after a few measurement runs, the QD OLED panel got fatigued, and peak brightness would dip even further to around 600 nits, requiring a prolonged rest time before 1600 nits was possible again. Please bear in mind that these were just out-of-the-box measurements with zero run-in time to give you guys an idea of the television's peak brightness. I will take more readings to be included in my full review once I've run the television in for at least 100 hours and calibrated it. But these initial figures do indicate that the Samsung S95B employs a more relaxed ABL or automatic brightness limiter circuitry than every WRGB OLED television I've tested so far, being able to go brighter at every window size measured. Being able to hit 1000 nits also means that the majority of HDR content mastered to 1000 nits can be presented without tone mapping, and that's certainly borne out by the PQ-EOTF tracking chart which hard-clipped at 1000 nits instead of rolling off earlier. Going into the user menu, there's a peak brightness setting with 3 levels of off, medium, and high, making me think that perhaps the UI has been designed to accommodate future WRGB OLED television models featuring wide subpixel boosting. Note that the brightness optimization setting is enabled by default, so you will have to switch it off if you want to avoid the television's light sensor from meddling with the picture on screen, mainly in SDR. Several anti-screen burn measures are provided on the Samsung S95B QD-OLED, such as pixel shifting, logo luminance dimming, and pixel refresh compensation cycle. The pixel shifting implemented on the Samsung S95B QD-OLED was less subtle than what we normally see on WRGB OLED televisions. We spotted the whole screen shifting in a noticeable way on several occasions. Despite the seemingly accurate PQ-EOTF tracking at least until 200 nits measured on paper, the HDR presentation on the S95B still looked brighter than a reference monitor, suggesting that perhaps Samsung is up to its usual shock and awe tactic of manipulating the EOTF through undefeatable dynamic tone mapping. But I will reserve my full judgment until I can do more comprehensive testing and calibration. Like the Alienware QD OLED monitor, the Samsung S95B uses a non-standard subpixel layout where the red, green, and blue subpixels are arranged in a triangle, although the subpixels on this 55-inch QD-OLED television are square-shaped, whereas the ones on the 34-inch QD-OLED monitor are not. We don't expect this atypical subpixel configuration to cause a problem from a normal TV viewing distance, unless you are using the Samsung S95B QD-OLED as a PC monitor to read fine text, in which case, good luck to your neck. For gaming, the Samsung S95B offers 3 input lag levels of fast, faster, and fastest with game mode enabled. At 60 frames per second, input lag measured 19 milliseconds on the fast setting, dropping to 13 milliseconds once we switched to the faster setting. Engaging the fastest setting resulted in an input lag of 9.2 milliseconds, which is neck and neck with the boost mode on LG OLED televisions, suggesting that the Samsung S95B QD-OLED was also frame doubling 60 fps signal to 120 fps. With an actual 120 frames per second video signal, input lag measured 4.7 milliseconds on the Samsung QD-OLED, again matching what LG OLED TVs could do. Samsung TVs including the S95B QD-OLED are also unique in allowing gamers to engage motion interpolation in game mode to smooth out the stutter in 30 fps games, and with Game Motion Plus enabled, input lag still measured a responsive 19 milliseconds, which is the same as the input lag fast setting. Otherwise, all 4 HDMI ports on the Samsung S95B support the full HDMI 2.1 bandwidth of 48 gigabits per second, as well as 24 gigabits per second of DSC or display stream compression. This video is sponsored by Box, the online technology store. Visit box.co.uk for the best deals on TVs, soundbars, and all your other technology needs. One thing to note is that even though the game HDR setting is meant to activate HDIG, we still needed to go all the way up to 2800 nits for both maximum tone map luminance and maximum full frame tone map luminance before the checker boxes would hard clip and disappear on the HDIG calibration screens on the Xbox Series X. With the max TML and max FFTML values of 2800 nits, specular highlights in HDIG compliant games would appear severely blown out, which is not ideal of course. I've previously done an instruction video explaining how to adjust the HDIG calibration values correctly on Samsung televisions to prevent blowing out specular highlight detail, so go watch that video by clicking here.